family, and welcome to the Pearls for Diamonds podcast, where we discuss and share our experiences and wisdom to encourage and support your courageous leadership where we live, learn, and earn. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about why it is that understanding and knowing our heritage is so critical when it comes to our family leadership. Here's the deal, folks. We know that there are 5 pillars to courageous family leadership, and one of them is our personal leadership. And developing in our personal leadership has to do with who we are as people, where we come from, how we identify, how we relate to the world, and how we develop interpersonally within our leadership styles, our personalities, all the unique things that make you you, right? And so one of the things that we often realize, especially with folks in countries like America that are considered these melting pots and where you have a lot of different people from different cultural backgrounds that over the years have connected and mixed and all the things that have happened. And so now we have come to a point where there are a lot of people who do not know their cultural heritage. And cultural heritage, knowing where you come from, knowing where your ancestors come from, knowing where your people originate from, that is part of what helps us develop a healthy and hearty identity. It also helps us to be more competent and understanding in our cultural proficiency and knowing how to interact with others. But when we have people who do not know their cultural heritage, or in other cases have been denied their cultural heritage, it causes challenges within our personal leadership. It's difficult to be able to figure out who you are and where you're going if you don't know where you've come from. That in and of itself is the spirit of Sankofa. It's knowing where you've been to know where you're going. And so as we continue to develop our family leadership, it is really critical that we do things to understand our heritage. We all have traditions and values that we share with our children and within our families. But this piece about cultural heritage and knowing where you come from cannot be overlooked. It cannot be something that we just shoo away to the side. And we have to, especially in America, face the fact that our history is one where this has not always been a value. As we've seen the tides change over the last decade or two, we've seen that people have become more prideful in their heritage. And now we have different heritage months. For example, we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. There's Arab Heritage Month, Asian Heritage Month, of course, African American or Black History Month, and Irish History Month. There's Armenian History Month. Like there's all these different cultural, historical times that we're outlining because we want to celebrate culture. And in order for us to effectively celebrate culture, we have to know what our cultural heritage is. That being said, I personally found out my ethnicity or cultural heritage identity because I am of African descent and I am the descendant of the survivors of the Middle Passage. I didn't know all of my cultural heritage, and so I actually did a DNA test. And in my DNA test, I found out that I am what part of Africa my ancestors originated from, and it's actually several different places. And I also found out that whereas I thought that there was a lot more Native American heritage in my blood, it's actually I have more Scottish heritage than I do Native American heritage, which was interesting because my life I had always been told that my grandmother was part Choctaw or and all of these different things that we're told. Now, please know, folks, I am not an expert at DNA tests or heritage or anything like that. I'm well aware that the more data that goes into the system, the more people that get their DNA done, the more it shifts the algorithms to be able to tell us where it is we've come from. I'm totally understanding of that. But that being said, if there is a way for us to understand our cultural heritage, either through a DNA test or through conversations with family, telling those stories, getting into the habit of beginning into conversations about heritage. One of the last points I want to make is that we have to, in order to do this, we have to acknowledge that many of our ancestors and our older, more seasoned relatives came up in a time when acknowledging your cultural heritage was on what could have been dangerous, or it didn't provide the same kinds of benefits. If I'm being really frank, this country has been based on this white is right mentality and this, kind of clawing for whiteness. And in that, there are many cultures that either dismissed, covered up, or tried to set aside part of their culture in exchange for this idea of whiteness. Now we are rolling back the tide on that and saying, I'm not sure that that was exactly the way. I'm not necessarily white. I'm Italian. That's different. I'm not necessarily white. I am Irish. That's different. I'm Dutch. I'm Scottish. I'm Swedish. I'm Norwegian. Like, these are now the conversations that folks were having, because historically it was, when you come here, exchange your heritage, where you came from, for this idea of being, white or American. Those two terms were kind of used synonymously depending upon what time in history we're talking about. So as we move forward and we all start to reclaim our cultural heritage and reclaim our cultural identities, I want to make sure that we know that that is a very important and critical part of us developing as people, and it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to have, any kind of conflict around. It just is. It's a learning experience. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for development. So that my final pearl for wisdom on this podcast is to remind us that if we are going to figure out who we are and where we're going, it's important that we know where we've come from. It's important that we know our heritage, and our cultural heritage in particular, as part of our personal leadership development. So I hope you will continue to join us. Let us know what your conversations and your thoughts and opinions are. Please subscribe and like to this podcast. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor. And if nobody told you they love you today, know that we here at Family Legacy 5, we love you. We appreciate you. Please go out and make it a great day. And if you can't, don't ruin anybody else's. Till next time, folks. Bye-bye.